conservative leaders. Senator Tom Tillis, thank you for being with us today. Thanks for your great leadership, Senate, and for so many years here in Raleigh. And Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest, thank you for your leadership and your strong stand. For those of you that don't know me, which, would be most of you, Karen and I had the great privilege just a few short weeks ago to accept our party's nomination to run and serve as the next Vice President of the United States of America, and we could not be more honored and we could not be more humbled. I appreciate so very much the introductions and the warm welcome today, but for those who know me well, the introduction I prefer is actually just a little shorter. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican, in that order. And I got to tell you, I joined this campaign in a heartbeat. We got a phone call 11 o'clock at night. Karen was at my side. We'd had a little time to reflect and pray about it if the phone was to ring. And we picked it up, and I heard that familiar voice, and I said yes, because you have nominated a man for president who never quits, who never backs down. He is a fighter. He is a winner. And up until just a short time ago, it seemed like he was out there all on his own. But now this party is united. This movement is united, and we're going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States of America. I come from south of Highway 40 in Indiana. We speak a little plainly down that way. People say to me, what is it about Donald Trump? And I like to say, Donald Trump just gets it, right? I mean, he's the genuine article. For me, not since Ronald Reagan in my lifetime has there been a man or woman at the national level who has understood and heard the frustrations and the aspirations of the American people the way Donald Trump does. He's the genuine article. He's a doer in a game usually reserved for talkers. And when Donald Trump does talking, he doesn't go tiptoeing around thousands of rules of political correctness that are laid in the path of men and women who want to take a conservative stand. He's distinctly American. Didn't he? He makes some of those people in Europe just crazy. I mean, if you think about it, where else would an independent spirit like Donald Trump find a following than in the land of the free and in the home of the brave? The funny thing is, the party in power seems helpless to figure out our nominee. And of course, I'm referring to the media. Really, you think about it. The media and the Democrats, they have the same problem. They all keep telling each other the usual methods are going to work against him. They keep thinking they've done him in. They think this is over, we finally got him, and then they turn on the television the next morning, and Donald Trump is still standing and fighting for the American people in front of thousands of people, and he will make America great again because he has the courage and the tenacity and the resilience to do it. It really is amazing if you think about the contrast in this campaign. At the very moment when the American people are crying out for something new and different, the other party has answered with a stale agenda and the most predictable of names. People in both parties are restless. We're restless for change. We're restless to break free from the failed status quo in Washington, D.C. And Democrats just nominated someone who literally represents everything this country is tired of. So let me say to my friends here in Raleigh, my friends here in North Carolina, let's decide here and now this morning that for the sake of our security, for the sake of our prosperity, for the sake of all of our God-given liberties, that Hillary Clinton will never be elected President of the United States of America. The choice could not be more clear. The American people could elect someone who literally personifies a failed establishment in Washington, D.C., or we can choose a leader who will fight every day to make America great again. It's change versus the status quo, and I got to tell you, being around this good man, here seeing his energy and his vision, I can promise you from the day Donald Trump becomes President of the United States of America, the change will be huge. You know, the President of the United States the other day went before the media at a press conference and said a few things about my new boss. He said he was unfit to serve, and he also said he was, quote, woefully unprepared to do this job. Now, allow me to stipulate that Barack Obama knows a lot about being woefully unprepared to be President of the United States. But the thing that really bothered me was what he said about judgment. He really did. He said that Donald Trump lacked basic knowledge of critical issues, and he lacked the judgment to sit in the highest office in the land. So why don't we look at the record of judgment of this administration, at home and abroad, of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. I mean, when you look at a map of the world, the wider Middle East, 2009 to today, it's fairly, it doesn't even look like the same part of the world. I mean, it's extraordinary. This administration, through its policies, has weakened America's place in the world in so many different ways, and it's worth talking about. I mean, it was Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton who, having inherited the hard-fought gains in Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2009, made the decision to withdraw all American forces precipitously without a status of forces agreement. And it was Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton who created the vacuum of power in Iraq from which ISIS was conjured in the sands and compromised those blood-bought gains. It was Hillary Clinton who actually instigated the president's disastrous agreement with the radical mullahs in Iran. And of course, we're all still reeling this morning. We're still reeling this morning from the news that on the very week that 4 American hostages were released, that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama saw to it that $400 million worth of cash was delivered to Iran. I mean, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama have essentially put a price tag on the head of every American traveling abroad in violation of long-standing American policy about paying ransom and doing deals with terrorists. Now, Hillary Clinton said yesterday, she said it was old news. Barack Obama's White House yesterday actually called it a coincidence. Iranian defense officials told the press in the Wall Street Journal I read this morning that the cash was a ransom payment. Men and women here in Raleigh, let me say to you, we cannot have 4 more years apologizing to and accommodating the enemies of our freedom. Donald Trump will stand up for the security of the American people. He will confront those who threaten us, and he will destroy ISIS and terrorists at their source. But that's not even the whole record. You know, it was Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama after a series of decisions of judgment, moving red lines, feigning resets with Russia. It all seems to shout out a truth of history that I've long believed, that weakness arouses evil. And the weak foreign policy of this administration has aroused the enemies of this country. And the most heartbreaking of all, it was Hillary Clinton. It was Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama who left Americans in harm's way in Benghazi. And then, after 4 Americans fell, Hillary Clinton actually said, "What difference at this point does it make?" Judgment. Well, let me say, as the proud father of a United States Marine, As a proud father of a United States Marine, let me say from my heart, anyone who ever said that, anyone who ever did that, should be disqualified from ever serving as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States of America. Donald Trump, as President of the United States, will rebuild our military. He will support our troops. He will put the safety and security of the American people first. And on the world stage, Donald Trump will lead from strength, and the world will be more safe, and the American people will be more safe as a result. And at home, the record is just as disappointing. And Hillary Clinton essentially offers a third Obama term. She championed Obamacare because years earlier she'd all but invented it in what was known as Hillary Care, remember? And the national debt has nearly doubled in the last 8 years, and her only answer is more borrowing, more spending, more bailouts, more takeovers. Did you hear that speech the other night she gave? Seemed like about a week ago tonight. I listened to most of it. I mean, honestly, I had as hard a time staying awake as her husband. It's got along. And the thing about it, there was nothing new there. I mean, really and truly. The senator's with me on this. I mean, it's the same old, isn't it? I mean, it was more borrowing, more spending, more take. Here we go. We got more stimulus. We got more omnibus. We got it all coming at us again. The truth of the matter is, the American people are tired of being told. We're tired of being told this is as good as it gets. And that's what they've been telling us. I mean, I was told that the strong truth-telling of Donald Trump at our national convention wasn't what the American people wanted to hear. Well, I was raised to believe that leaders speak the truth. Okay? And Hillary Clinton last week painted a picture of to the American people that this is the best we can do. Well, I'm sure you know here in Raleigh what we know back in Indiana. It's not nowhere near the best we can do. It's just the best they can do. And when Donald Trump becomes President of the United States of America, we're going to cut taxes, repeal Obamacare, unleash the extraordinary, unboundless potential of the American people, and we're going to put the American people back to work. You know, I know what I'm talking about here. I mean, really and truly. I come from a state that works. So do you. I mean, North Carolina and Indiana are out there with two of the fastest growing state economies in the country, 1 month after the next. Compared to a national economy that we learned the morning after Hillary Clinton's speech had only grown by 1.2%. The slowest economic recovery since 1949. But in the state of Indiana, just like here in North Carolina, we've been putting common sense conservative principles into practice. Senator Tillis in his old job and I were talking about that. Yeah, your good Governor Pat McCrory needs to be re-elected, and he's been doing the same thing. I mean, in North Carolina and Indiana, we know, if you live within your means, if you let people keep more of what they earn, you make the right investments in education and in roads and bridges and infrastructure, you take 3 steps back, it all still works, right? I'm proud to say in the state of Indiana, we've got balanced budgets, we've got record reserves. I've cut taxes every single year that I've been governor of Indiana, and we have more Hoosiers going to work than ever before in the 200-year history of the state. And that's exactly the kind of no-nonsense leadership that Donald Trump is going to bring to the White House when we elect him as our next president. You know, for years we've had fundamental problems in this country that seem to get talked to death in Washington, D.C. and never get solved. It's almost like those people get paid by the word. I mean, really and truly. You know, before I was governor of the state of Indiana, I served in the Congress of the United States. I was a member of Congress for 12 years, and I often tell people if I only had 12 years left to live, I'd want to live it as a member of Congress, because that was the longest 12 years of my life. the truth is that while you got great people, you got great people like Senator Tom Tillis, and you have tremendous conservative legislators like Senator Richard Burr that you must send back to Washington, D.C. What's been lacking in leadership the last 7.5 years in Washington is basic leadership. And Donald Trump's going to bring a vision that will never forget the men and women in this country who work with their hands, who grow the food, who build the roads and bridges, who tend to our sick, who teach our kids. He'll bring a vision and a voice for everyday Americans to the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue and empower great conservatives on Capitol Hill to make progress for this country once and for all. And let me promise you this, Donald Trump will never forget the men and women who stand on the thin blue line of law enforcement in this country. Would you join me in thanking all the members of our law enforcement and public safety community who are with us here today? As the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States of America, I'll tell you what, President Donald Trump will support our law enforcement at every level, provide the resources that they need to do the job to protect our families and go home safe to theirs, and he will fight to restore law and order to every community, city, town in this country as President of the United States. And I'm going to slide off here and get to your questions and have them turn the house lights up when they do that. So I can hear you're out there, but I really can't see you that well. So as they get ready to do that, let me share at least one more thing about the stakes of this election. And Senator Tillis knows the importance of this as well. As the election approaches, we should all remember that we're electing a president for the next 4 years, but the next President of the United States will likely determine the course of the Supreme Court of the United States for the next 40. And we better think very carefully about that. We better think long and hard about what that means to our Constitution. We ought to think long and hard about what that means to the principles of limited government. And we ought to count the cost in this election. You know, elect Hillary Clinton and you better get used to being subject to unelected judges using unaccountable power to take unconstitutional actions. The truth of the matter is that with the passing of the late and great Justice Antonin Scalia, the very balance of the court hangs in the balance in this election. But maybe that's altogether fitting, because the American people will decide. And so I say to all of you, for the sake of the rule of law, for the sake of the sanctity of life, for the sake of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, for the sake of all of our God-given liberties in limited government, we must ensure that the next president making appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States of America is President Donald Trump. Now, one last thing. You know, it seems these days like there's so many things that divide us, and so few great purposes that unite us as they once did. But I submit to you that that can change if we begin to reflect on the founding principles of this country. You know, my grandfather immigrated to this country from Ireland when he was about my son's age. He came here, as a legend in our family says, because his mother said, "There's a future there for you in America." And it was the American dream. He came across the country. He got a job in Chicago, Illinois as a bus driver. He drove a bus for 40 years, his proudest man I ever knew, and I was named after him. And his Irish brogue still rings in my ears and in my heart. He watched my mom marry a fast-talking salesman who took her down to a small town in southern Indiana, bought a house with a cornfield in the backyard, and they built everything that matters. They built a family, a business, and a good name. And they really taught us how special this country was all of my life. And it wasn't special because of one political position or another. It was special because in America, because of our freedom, because of our Constitution, that here in this country, different throughout much of human history, anybody can be anybody. It's extraordinary to think about it. That's what the American dream truly is. And it's been on those principles that I think we should seek to remind ourselves in these challenging times, in these times of division. And chief among them for me is to remember that since before the founding of this nation, when people first came to these wilderness shores, it was freedom that drew us here, and particularly the freedom to believe that we were one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'll tell you, if like my little family, you're inclined from time to time to bend the knee, it'd be a good time to do it, as Americans have done throughout all of our history in this nation of freedom to believe. Because I still believe with all of my heart that if His people, who are called by His name, will humble themselves and pray, He'll still hear from heaven, and He will heal our land. I believe it with all my heart. So, before I jump to your questions, let me remind you of a couple of basic things, because I really hope you leave here today. Hope I get a chance to say hello to as many of you as I can, and before we whisk our way off to Virginia and other points on the map. But I want you to understand that Donald Trump and I are going to work our hearts out in this campaign. We're going to fight through the challenges in this campaign presented by the phalanx of a biased national media and a political establishment in Washington, D.C. with tenacity and with conviction. We're going to do it. But this election's in your hands. The destiny of the state of North Carolina, the destiny of this nation is in the hands of the American people, where it's always been. So I need you to leave here after this conversation, and I need you to leave here today and go find a neighbor and a friend. Go stop somebody at the drugstore and just look them in the eye and just say, hey, you know what? Here's why I'm for Donald Trump. Here's what the stakes are in this election. Because I promise you, every cable TV show in the world, every television commercial that would air, every newspaper article that could ever be written, doesn't matter a hill of beans next to you telling someone who knows you and trusts you, saying from your heart why you're taking the stand you're taking in this election. So go out and lay out the choice, because here it is. If you want a president who will protect this nation, confront radical Islamic terrorism, and rid the world of ISIS by destroying it at its source, if you want a president who will restore law and order to this country and give our law enforcement community the resources and the training and the support that they need and deserve, if you want a president who will cut taxes, grow our economy, squeeze every nickel out of that bloated federal bureaucracy in Washington, D.C., and repeal Obamacare, lock, stock, and barrel. If you want a president who will build strong borders enforce our laws, and stand up for the rule of law in this country for every American. And if you want a president who will upend the status quo in Washington, D.C., and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, I say this: we have but one choice. That man is ready. This team is ready. This movement is ready. And I believe America is ready to elect Donald Trump as the 45th President of the United States of America. We do that, and we will make America great again. Let's go get it done. Thank you.